What's up, guys? Ben here, bringing another video today. Week 1 of the Major 2 qualifiers has completed. I'm recording this on Monday morning. We're going to start off the week with our first video as a tier list. So I'm going to go ahead. We're going to pull up the tier list from the video I made a couple of weeks ago after Major 1. I think I made it like before New Year's. Take a look at that and see how things have shifted. I'm going to make this like a regular thing each week. We will put out a new tier list and go from there. So let's dive in and see who is moving up and who is moving down. All right, so this is the tier list. From that last video. If you are new, let me explain how the tiers work, because I don't like doing the letter stuff. I think that's kind of lame. So in the first top section, you have Sunday regulars. These are your top 4 teams. Sunday regulars, aka they make it a championship Sunday, aka top 4. Potential contenders is like top 6 to top 8. It sort of changes. But these are your teams that I think still have a chance to win. They're not going to be probably as consistent as your Sunday regulars, but they'll be there or thereabouts. Some of them will probably have hot online stages and then kind of not play as good on land. Some of them might be teams that don't play as good online, but are much better on land. So they're all going to be teams that are pretty solid to make it the champs, but aren't in that sort of above tier of teams, I think, that are your kind of like top tier contenders. Work to do are going to be teams kind of on the champs cut line, maybe need a roster change, maybe need sort of a change in philosophy, or they're sort of lacking a game mode or two that they're not really good at. So these could be top 8 teams in here, but it could also be teams, especially as we get to sort of major 2, 3, 4, and 5, teams that unfortunately get eliminated like losers round 2 and don't necessarily make it deep into the tournament. And then missing pieces, unfortunately, are your bottom dweller teams. These are the teams that will pull up to major 2 on Friday and unfortunately exit there and not make it to the weekend. They're probably a roster change or 2 away from being a quality team and or a contender. All right, let's start with the New York Subliners. Coming off their major win, had a nice victory against the LA Thieves. That was their only match this weekend. They did lose first match in a tight one on Fortress to Thieves, but then they took an interesting Asilo S&D, although I think Thieves probably could have won that map. Fortress was super close, and then they closed out on an embassy, a hard point. So I would say it's probably like a B plus, A minus showing for New York, but first match of any qualifier could be a little bit of a landmine, so I don't blame them. They're clearly going to be a Sunday regular until proven otherwise, coming off that victory from the last major, so no change for them. That being said, a team that I think probably might change in this is the CDL Surge. So let's talk about them next. They had 2 matches and went 0-2. They lost the game 5 to Vegas Legion. They won the first map in that series on 4-Point Embassy. Got smoked on the Asilo S&D by Vegas. 3-0'd Vegas on control, but we know how bad Vegas is at game mode. Vegas then took a close game 5 Mercado and then closed it out on a Fortress S&D. And the thing with Seattle, again, you're going to see it throughout time and time again, is, you know, they probably should win that matchup, but S&D is a real problem. And you saw it again when they played FaZe later on in the weekend. Absolute one-way traffic of a series, and we'll get to FaZe here in a second. But it was a hot 3-0 on Embassy, Mercado, S&D, and Hotel Control. So first off, Seattle's not a good online team. I expect them to play better when they get to land, but until they fix this S&D thing, bro, like I can't put them in Sunday regulars. I'm going to slot them in this spot for right now, but I think this will shuffle around. But I don't know if they're a lock for a top 4 at the next event. Obviously, things can change, and they've got a pretty interesting schedule the rest of the way in the major 2 qualifiers. 3 matches against Optic, New York, and Rockers. So I think we're going to learn a lot about the Seattle team online, but unfortunately, they got to move down a tier after this weekend's performance. All right, with Seattle moving down, let's talk about FaZe, and we just discussed that FaZe 3-0'd Seattle. That was FaZe's only match of the weekend, and the whole team played well. Austin had a 1-5. Simp was going crazy in the control. Abeezy's continuing to do his thing in search. He looks like Cold War Abeezy, Modern Warfare Abeezy when it comes to S&D. If this team can continue to be more consistent in the hard point, like, they will likely win an event this season. So I don't think we need to speak too much on them in this video. They do have a very interesting schedule with Rocker, New York, LAG, and Optic. A lot of interesting storylines there. So I think we'll see a lot more of them over the next 2 weeks when they have to play 2 matches each weekend. But they're a clear Sunday regular. We'll move on. Another team that I don't think we need to talk too much about, because I think they're going to stay in this category as well, is Toronto Ultra. They 3-0'd London first match of the weekend for them, and then they 3-1'd Florida. Only loss was on the Asilo S&D, but we know how Florida is good and S&D. Another team like FaZe that, again, I expect to be there or thereabouts on Sunday. They just look solid across all modes. Definitely a few things they need to work on. I think their hardpoint map pool is a little tight. They've got like 3 maps they're really good at, but at the moment they don't really play Fortress or Hydro. So there's a potential opportunity, I think, for some teams as they start to get better on hardpoint, might be able to chip away at that hardpoint map pool. But they're a really good control team. I just like where Toronto's at the beginning of the season. I feel good about them being in this spot for a while, so we'll leave them as is and move on. All right, we're going down a category, and a team that unfortunately I think is in a little bit of a slump right now is LA Thieves. They had 2 matches this weekend and unfortunately went 0-2. We talked about their New York match early on in this video, and they lost that one 3-1. And then yesterday they played LAG, who weirdly enough, they've as a franchise never beat LA Gorillas, which is mind-blowing. Unfortunately, that trend has now continued. LAG took them out on Embassy Hardpoint pretty soundly, mind you. The S&D went to around 10, but LAG closed out there. Thieves are able to win a map on Fortress Control, but unfortunately, LAG was too strong for them on Fortress Hardpoint, and that was that. And for Thieves, like, they're just such a weird team at the moment. I don't think they're bad. The slaying doesn't seem to be there. The takeover that we saw from their team doesn't seem to be there. The S&D seems really, really weak. I don't really want to move them to like work to do, but people like it when I order these. So I'm going to put them like here-ish. I mean, it doesn't really matter how I order them within the categories. I just don't feel confident in Thieves right now being a top 4 team. They've got some time to improve. They got matches coming up against Toronto, London, and Boston. So if they can beat Toronto and Boston, I think they'll feel pretty good about where they net, but they got to go probably 3-0 over that stretch because of the 0-2. Don't want to start in losers and have to make the full run. Team I have my eye on because at the moment Thieves are not playing strong. And let's move on to the next team. We got Optic Texas, who obviously made the roster change. Much talked about here and elsewhere. Bringing in HUKE. They played Boston this weekend. It was an absolute heater of a series. Went to game 5. Optic took maps 1, 3, and 5 in the series. And I think what you like to see from Optic was everybody was stepping up and competing in that series. There were no weak links. The S&D on Embassy is a massive work in progress for them. They just don't seem to really have a grasp on how to really play that map. And, I think S&D is probably going to be one of their weaker game modes until they can get a lot of practice in with this new team. And I think Parasite was making a good point on the flank that, they're probably under practice overall in the game mode, considering all the issues they had before Major 1. So I like to start for them. To give you a reminder of their upcoming matches, they play Seattle, Toronto, Vegas, and FaZe. So I actually think that all 4 of those matches are like pretty good and can be pretty difficult. So we'll see where Optic is at. I think at the moment I'll swap them here. I think we'll probably slide one of these teams up and we'll get there in a sec. But I like Optic's upside. I felt like top 6, top 8 could be where they land for this major. But if they kick it on from here, I mean, sky's the limit with the squad. XEO's back, so let's see what they can do. All right, next up we have the Minnesota Rocker. An interesting week for them. They got absolutely 3-0 smoked by Boston to kick things off. They got food poisoning, and then they were able to reverse sweep London in their second series. But I don't really know like what to think about this Rocker team right now. Obviously, that London victory is nice, but I think London, the team, is not very good right now. They really did not look competitive against Boston whatsoever. This team continues to have a major issue in game 1s. I'll pull up the exact stat for you. In 11 matches so far this season, they have 3 wins in game 1 and 8 losses. They also aren't winning game 2s, either 4 and 7 on that front, but they're doing a good job when they get to later on in the series. So I think for this team, like, they got to just figure out how to start stronger and get a little bit better at hardpoint. For now, I think I'm going to leave them. I don't know what I want to do here with Minnesota, honestly. I don't actually think that even with that performance at the moment that I feel like they're top 6, top 8, because I think we might slide 2 of these teams up here. So I'm going to, unfortunately, even with that 1 more week, move Minnesota down. But here's what I'll say is they have FaZe, LAG, and Seattle coming up. And if they can win 2 or 3 of those, I think they go back up potential contenders. But that's how it works in the middle of the CDL. All of these teams are very tight, and week to week, you can slide up and down unless you're an elite team. So it is what it is. Let's see if Minnesota can use that London match and really kick their season on from here. Keeping this moving, and I think a team I'm just going to probably insta slide up here to potential contenders is Boston. They had a weird one, bro. Like a super weird one this weekend. They, like I said, they 3-0'd Rocker. And then that Optic series was just odd, bro. Like, I don't know what it is with this Boston team. Like, they are very good. I think anyone that's going to put in the comments like, oh, Boston 1-1, why are you moving them up? Like, this team is definitely good. This team should be top 6, top 8. The problem with this team is that might just be their ceiling, because when they get up to these matches where they need to play better teams, and I'm not really counting their first match against FaZe this season because it's the first match of the year, they just kind of crumble in these matches, and it's a little odd. I don't quite understand on the prep or the mental side if they're just kind of sucking them out, just checking themselves out. They just did not really slay well in that Optic series. And I think you need to have a real inquest with the squad about going forward, like how do we improve that element of our game, these big matches, because they are good enough to beat like almost every team around them here. But whenever they play one of the big dogs, it's just, or Optic, I guess, something goes south for them. So let's see if they can figure it out. The remaining matches are the Vegas Legion, Florida, and LA Thieves for this qualifier. All right, next up, we have the Vegas Legion, and a team that I'm still feeling solid about. They had one match only this weekend, and it was a nice Game 5 win against Seattle. They continue to be one of the elite teams in S&D, and I think that is super important considering how bad they are at respawn. This team probably top 6, top 8 ceiling, and I'm going to slide them up behind Boston. We'll probably do like this just for that. I know we'll probably need to do some tweaking here at the end, but Vegas is like top 8 potential, top 6 potential, as long as they continue to grind out these series. They do, however, have a tricky schedule. So they have to play Boston, London, New York, and Optic. So I think if they can win 2 of those, they should be set. Probably make it to winners bracket, but it could come down to a final match against Optic to decide if they make it to winners or not. They can improve their respawn. This team, if they're as good they are in search, like they might get things done. But at the moment, I think top 6, top 8 is probably where they net. But I got to move them off of work to do because I like the way that they are playing right now. Okay, keeping it moving and grooving, we got the Florida Mutineers and a fun kind of sequence for them this weekend. I don't think I'm really going to change Florida in my placement on them on this list. They did go ahead and defeat LAG in a Game 5. They lost the first map, but they did win both searches in that series and the control. And then unfortunately, they were outclassed by Toronto, only taking the S&D, but the respawns were not close. So I think putting Florida in work to do seems fair. And you may say, well, what's the difference between them and Vegas? I think for me, when push comes to shove, if I need to say which of these two teams are going to place top 6, top 8 more consistently, I think unfortunately it's going to be Vegas. I would love to move Florida kind of up a tier. But at the moment, I think that personally, and the numbers may not back it up, but this is more of a personal preference, I see Vegas more likely get those results consistently than Florida. So this one might shift a bunch over the next couple of weeks. Florida has to play New York, London, and Boston. And honestly, I don't know if they can really win 2 or 3 of those. So they might be in losers bracket to start. And I think for them as well, as much as I say that Vegas is like not that good at hardpoint, I think Florida is like even worse at that game mode. So that does it for that on Florida. You know, they're going to be thereabouts to maybe qualify for champs this season. Let's see. All right, we got 2 teams left. We got the London Royal Ravens, and they brought in scraps after Major 1, sent Paul X to the bench, and not a great weekend for them. Got 3-0 smoked by Toronto, and then got reverse swept, as we discussed, by Minnesota. I mean, the only silver lining for this team is Asim's playing good. He seems to be on a hot streak right now, and if he can keep this up, I mean, we've always seen sort of bouts of inconsistency with Asim, but he's always been on a lot of these like weird teams that just sort of are super peak and valley. And this is one of them. I think at the moment, this team is just not good. They're going to stay in missing pieces. There are a couple roster changes away. Maddie's got to play better coming in. Didn't have a great weekend. Trey's got to play better. Losing a lot of key gunfights, playing too slow. Nasty's fine, but he's not an elite level sub. This team's in real trouble. And they've got Thieves, Vegas, and Florida coming up. They got to win probably all 3 of those to really have a shot and making winners. Let's see what they can do. But for now, unfortunately, they might actually be the bottom team in the CDL. And the reason that is because we got to talk about LAG, who had kind of a fun weekend, kind of a mixed bag, but a lot to kick on if you're LAG and feeling a little bit more optimistic about your last squad. They played Florida and unfortunately came up short in that Game 5. And then they played Thieves and went ahead and won that. So I feel like this LAG team, first off, they went 4-0 in hardpoint this weekend. So big turnaround for them in that game mode overnight with the changes, basically taking their LG Academy squad, swapping Diamond Khan for Alec and calling it a day. That being said, S&D, they went 0-3 this weekend. So, you know, still got to work on that game mode. I'm going to move LAG up and just leave London as a sole team right now that are missing pieces. This maybe team sliding down right now. But I want to emphasize that London, I think, is the worst team in the league at the moment. I think LAG is still kind of undecided how I feel about it because it seems like they got some upside in respawn, but let's see one more practice. If they can get better at search, they've got Minnesota, FaZe, and Toronto coming up the rest of the Major 2 qualifiers. So need probably some help to get into winners. If they can win 2 or 3, they're probably set. If they get one, it's going to get a little dicey. Let's see what happens. All right, how do I want to tweak this? I'm thinking, for all of what I said in the middle of this video, I'm thinking I might need to do this because my OCD is kicking in, and I'm like, maybe this sort of makes a lot more sense than me putting like 9 teams up top. Let me just think about this for a second. New York faced Toronto, Sunday regulars. Yeah, that's good. Seattle here. Some might argue I should probably put like, I don't know. I should probably put like something like this or like this, but I don't know. I don't think it really matters. Whatever. I'll leave Seattle there for now. Thieves, it's kind of borderline here. I feel like they're slumping. A lot of people are going to probably be in the comments be like, you should probably put Thieves down and work to do, but I want to give them the benefit of the doubt at the moment, at least for a couple of more weeks. But yeah, I mean, I think I feel good about this. I don't really want to put a 4th team up here. I don't think it's clear of this group of teams like who is a clear top 4 at the moment. Optic is probably feeling the best out of all 4 of these teams after this weekend, but we only saw 1 match from them, and I still feel like their lack of practice and search really hurts them playing these 3 teams. I feel good about where this list is at. I think we're going to see a lot of shuffling, I think, between these 3. And maybe over the next 2 weeks, someone will get up here. But for now, not a clear top 4 team. The mid-pack is as expected in London. Woo. London needs a big rethink. Let's see if they can turn up better next week. That'll do it for this video. A fun one. I'm sure a lot of people will have thoughts about this tier list. Let me know in the comments what you think. Like if you enjoyed the video, subscribe for more. We're going to be, I'm going to put out tomorrow, probably like a takeaways video. I'll put away a Q&A as well this week at some point. We'll tweet out and get questions for those. And then I'll do my predictions. And I am working on, finally, I know I've been promising this for a while, but I think the Bruce interview has really kickstarted me getting this one-on-one show again. So I'm working on that. More information to come this week. And stick around, guys. Subscribe for more. And we'll see you guys on the next one.